Hi, everyone. This is the Leadership with Heart podcast, and this is Heather Younger, your host. Employee experience is powered by emotions. Managers and or leaders within organizations get to choose which emotions they unleash from within the people they lead. Leaders, meaning supervisors or above in an organization, drive much of the positive or negative emotions by their actions or inactions, their words, or what they fail to say. When a manager chooses their words and their actions carefully, they exhibit great emotional intelligence. These managers are often thought of as leaders who care, or as I like to call them, leaders with heart. This special brand of leader drives engagement and loyalty simply by being themselves. Are these leaders perfect? Absolutely not. It is in their awareness and sharing of some of their imperfections that we realize their brilliance. In this podcast, I ask that you see yourself in the stories my guests tell about times when they were not the best versions of themselves, but how they used their hearts to guide them to a place of deeper connection with their teams and heightened leadership prowess. Today, I'm very excited to welcome Scott McCarthy, one such leader. Enjoy. Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Leadership with Heart podcast. Today, I have one of my great friends, Scott McCarthy, on the phone, and we are going to have a lot of fun. The reason why I invited him on the phone, actually, or on the call, is number one, I was on actually one of his podcasts. He has I think it's Moving Forward Leadership podcast, and we had so much fun, and I could just tell by all of our conversation that he is someone that leads with heart. And when you hear his background, you're going to be like really amazed, and he does some amazing work. I just can't wait to hear. So welcome to the show, Scott.
Heather, I'm almost in tears already with that intro. Like I'm almost ready to cry. No, thank you so much for having me on the show. Audience, wait out. You are probably going to be wondering what the heck's going on, because we're going to have a wild time on this show.
Oh my gosh. So tell everybody, Scott, what it is you do. Where are you in your leadership career right now?
I'm bipolar. No, no offense way out there. No, I'm joking. I'm actually by day a senior Canadian Army officer, and what Heather was talking about, by night I run my own leadership podcast. But I do believe she wants to talk to me about my leadership experience as a senior Army officer. So basically, I joined Canadian Forces back in 2001, was selected for Canada's Royal Military College, was kind of like your equivalent to your West Point, graduate from there, and then graduate from there in 2006, and then steadily have been rising up through the ranks. So my first true leadership assignment, I was like 24 years old, and I commanded a transportation platoon, and that swelled over to 80 soldiers at the time. And currently, right now, I'm slowly winding down my current command position as a squadron commander with over 200 soldiers in it.
That's a lot to take in. I mean, that's a lot. And I bet you they have a lot of fun with you. I mean, unless you're just not nearly this fun with them.
Well, it depends on the day, right? What's going on? No, but seriously, as ironic as it may sound, we definitely in the Army can't take ourselves too seriously. We definitely need to have fun, because when it truly gets to working the job and doing the business, that's when we definitely get serious, right? So yes, take it day by day and enjoy the time, especially as a squadron commander, because my time's limited. We change jobs every 2 years. So
oh, wow.
As soon as I show up, the clock's ticking, right? So
the good thing about it, right, is you probably don't get bored too much, because if you're changing jobs every couple of years, then you're like, okay, this is kind of exciting. I'm in a new thing again.
No, it's funny actually you mentioned that. No, we definitely don't get bored too much. But I remember one job I had, I was an operations officer. So for our training center, our training center was massive. Not in the size of number of people, but the amount of people we put through. We would put through about 3,500 students a year through our training school, and we had a staff around 300. But we would bring in basically outside help. So people from other units across the country would bring in and augment us for periods. So we would swell up to 500 people in the school. Anyway, wow. I remember when I first did that job as operations officer, and the operations officer's job is to basically coordinate everything for every single course going on within the school. So small team, again, it was only about myself and 6 or 7 other guys and girls in there. But I remember after the first year, I'm like, all right, got this knocked, I'm ready to move on type thing.
Which is good. It's like for the folks that are like ADD or like kind of millennial type people, right? You're always moving around and up and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, even to make things worse, that was the first job that I held for 2 years. Everything else was about a year and a half or less at that point.
And you're like, okay, good. I'm ready to move on. That's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
So it reminds me of the people that I have a friend that has worked for a company for over 20 years. But the thing is about every year and a half, she's in a new role. And so she feels, kind of an affinity because she feels like she's always growing and changing in that role. And so, that's kind of the attraction there.
100%. Yeah, exactly. Same thing in the Army, right? You're constantly learning new things. You're tossed into new situations, new, like in some people's concerns, it would be completely different careers. Like I went from an operational unit, operationally focused, to a training center, and then out of there into another operational unit, and now I'm into what we refer to as a static unit. So that means we don't deploy. Generally, we don't deploy. I send ones and twos of soldiers on missions, but it's augment the operational units. So, you keep changing. Like the whole strategic level of your organization, you could easily switch. You could literally walk across the road, like I did almost 2 years ago now, go from complete operational focus to static, staying at home, 180.
Wow. So you are an amazing leader, and we know that. Now, what motivates you, I guess, to be the type of leader you are? What is it that gets you up that says, I'm going to lead today. I'm going to make sure that I am my best self today? What does that motivate you?
That's $1 million question. I wish I knew the answer. No. You know what? I wake up every day. I get dressed and I go to work and all that. And there's one question that goes through my mind every day. How can I make my people's lives better? And ultimately that's what I'm gearing towards, because my whole mentor is that my people achieve my mission for me. Mm-hmm. In the end, the reason why things get done is because of them. I don't do squat. I just sit there in my own fancy dancy office, which really it's Army life. It's not that fancy. And I make decisions. I sign off on some documents and stuff like this, but they're the ones day in, day out actually achieving the results at the ground level. Now, of course, granted, I give them their strategic vision, I empower them and all this jazz. So my whole goal is, the better I can make their lives, the easier work gets for them, the more they can achieve, and the better we as a unit operate. So that's basically how it works for me.
That's awesome. So from a leadership style perspective, I'm so curious about this because, again, I'd love to know. I just would wish to be a fly on the wall and see you in that space, knowing you in the space that we're in right now. But how would you define your leadership style?
Let me give you a story about that.
Okay.
So I was talking to one of my captains, one of my direct reports, who works directly for me, hence why they're a direct report. And he looks at me one day, he goes, boss, you didn't give me enough rope to hang myself with. And I kind of looked at him weird. I went, what? And he goes, you gave me enough rope to go bungee jumping with. And that's kind of how it says. My whole style is, I don't want to do anything. I'm a super lazy leader. And by that, what I mean is I delegate as much as I possibly can. And I tell my guys, I'm like, if I don't need to know about it, and think about it, truly think about it. If the boss doesn't need to know about it, doesn't have to do anything about it, I don't care. So my squadron is divided in 3, what we refer to as troops or subsections, right? And they're very different. Each one of them, they're very different, but when we come together as a cohesive team, things make sense and things happen. Now, they operate independently as well. So I tell my guys, I'm like, listen, if this only affects your troop, it's your problem, not mine. Now, if you need more resources or it's so complex you need advice, yes, I'm here for that. But if it affects only your troop, it's your problem. When it starts spilling over into multiple troops, now we're talking about it's my problem to deal with because it's affecting more than just one of them. But, hey, if you can sort it out at your level, I'm all game. So I'm all about delegation, pushing as much as I possibly can down to my troop commanders and telling them to delegate as much as they can. So basically the lowest level has the ability to make decisions on the fly, which some people may be like, holy cow, you're in the Army and you're telling about empowering. Like, isn't the Army all about hierarchical decision making and getting the commander's blessing and all that jazz? Yes, but it's also called, we could refer to as mission command. And that is giving your intent, your vision, your intent, and then empowering your subordinates to achieve the results. Not by telling them how to do it. That's another key thing. I never tell my guys how to do something. It's like, this is what I want done. Go do it.
Now, if they, in that situation, if they're ones who are like, okay, like they have a little bit of a confidence issue, like they're like, okay, you told me to go do it, but I'm a little bit unclear. do you then provide like guidance? Do you just ask a lot of questions? How do you handle that? I'm curious.
Yeah, for sure. They know anytime they can come in and ask clarification questions, because the biggest thing that will either make or break a organization is communication, right? And I say, as long as we're communicating, guys, it's all good. So don't worry about asking questions. If you need further clarification, come seek it. It's not a big deal. Now, I do realize that some guys are stronger than others, and that's when you start putting in different checks and balances, right? So start scheduling back briefs, as we refer to them as. Okay, I want you to go start handling this task. Come back next week. Give me an update, so that in case they're going off on a tangent the wrong direction, I can guide them back on the right path of where I want them to go. So that's one way to do it. Putting in just mile markers, briefings again, is another way. So getting them to brief, not necessarily back brief me, but maybe even back briefing my boss. So for example, if one of my guys is working on a project that the base commander, my boss, is involved in, I'll actually bring them in and get my subordinates to back brief him directly with me in audience, obviously in presence, just to give them that exposure, and it's training them as well to how to brief senior officers.
Oh, I love that. I really do feel that many times executive leaders have this, it's just us and it's our group, and I'm the only one who can deliver this message to my group, and you have to really truly be invited in, and not many executive leaders are comfortable inviting folks at the levels down to come into their kind of inner sanctum, because number one, I think there's a couple of reasons. I think there's some insecurity there where they want to be the one to deliver the news, so they can be the one who's kind of like the, riding in a white horse type thing, versus, and also they're threatening, they don't want to be, downplayed in the eye of their subordinates in front of their inner sanctum. So it's interesting. And so I think it's interesting that you say that, because again, I think that when I think about a leader with heart, I think it's someone who's definitely confident in themselves, but also really, really interested in growing the people around them. They want to coach their people, and they want to provide that access and open up those spaces for growth. And you doing that does just that. It allows them to grow.
100%. I can kind of understand why some people would be that way, because it kind of goes into, especially in a very high competitive corporate world, it kind of goes into job security and stuff like that. And ultimately, people are looking after themselves. Mm-hmm. But you have to keep in mind, end of the day, your time at an organization is limited. One day you will leave that organization. So if you go ahead and work 20 years with an organization and leave no one behind you to take whatever you have built and continually to move it forward, and the day you leave, it all falls apart, you just spent 20 years of your life for nothing. Let me say it again. 20 years of your life for nothing, because it will not survive past you, right? And that's what we refer to as sustainable leadership, something that will survive days after you leave. And this is what I'm trying to achieve, because one day, one of these junior officers, one of these captains, will become the officer commanding of the squadron. And it's basically like the same way as you're raising your children, right? You want to teach them and mentor them so that they grow up to be reasonable adults. So I want them to grow up and be reasonable majors and reasonable squadron commanders. So give them that experience. I don't need that experience. I've had enough time in front of the boss. The boss knows what I'm all about. It's about giving them that experience so that one day they can step in my shoes the day I leave and carry on.
Love it. See, I knew there was a reason why I was having you on here. Shoot.
I thought I was just paying back the favor. I'll be waiting for the day this actually airs publicly. We'll see. She's like, oh, yeah, no, it's coming next week. Heather, is that launched it? No, next week. Okay.
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, so we know. Look, we know you're amazing, right? You're awesome. You're just all these things you're saying. You really are.
I'm not going to be able to get out of my basement tonight to sleep in my bed because my
pretty much because it's getting deep, isn't it? I know. But so one of the things I do want to ask is, tell me a time, because I know there's got to be examples when you weren't perfect.
Oh,
tell me a time when you actually weren't the best version of yourself. When you look back and you go, maybe a specific interaction you had with one of your subordinates or something where you just said, I really should have done that differently, or, oh, I just really dropped the ball on that. And then how did you come out of it? Like, what did you do to come back around to just to be the better you?
Yeah. Whenever I get that question, one of like the thing that sticks out in my mind most is when I go way back to when I was like a junior officer, like basically, I think my second year out of the RMC. And that time I was just a second lieutenant or lieutenant, super junior. It was before I got my platoon, and I just had one guy working for me. And I was put in charge of arranging some training. I can't remember exactly the details, but I just remembered, basically the end results, right? And that's the things that stick with you the most. Mm-hmm. And the long story short was I needed to communicate something to my boss at the time, but for whatever reasons, this reason, that reason, it just never happened. Basically excuse, never got around to it. Something got delayed. So what ended up happening was, the one guy that was working for me, we ended up having to take him off a career course to fill another job. And that actually delayed his career by like 6 months, right? Yes. So massive, what I thought as a minor mistake at the time turned out to be pretty drastic, immediate impact to this guy. Now, granted, he got right back on track 6 months down the road, but still, it was like immediate, once it all came to light, it was like, holy cow, my actions have direct impact on people's lives, right? So that is when the whole thing for me about communication just got completely concreted in my mind. We need to make sure that we are continually communicating as an organization so that our people in the end don't suffer. And that was definitely not a shining moment in my career, but I would say it solidified the whole need for constant and clear communication with an organization so deep in me that it's benefited more so than the damage that was done in the end.
So that was a big learning. So basically, I'm imagining then when you discovered that it has slowed him down for 6 months, that's when you decided to kind of really change the way the process or how you decide this, or just the decision-making process going forward after that?
Absolutely. If I had information I needed to get to somebody, I made sure I moved to, mountains and molehills to get it to where it needed to be, and made sure I instilled that type of mentality in the organizations that I was running. And that really helped me when I was actually that operations officer job, when I was that position, because there's a lot of information flowing in and out of that small cell. And when you're coordinating up to courses for up to 3,500 students a year, one mistake could have drastic results, right?
Oh, yeah. That's crazy. Again, just, thinking about how large of a responsibility that is. Now, here's one of the things that it kind of might seem a little peculiar. I'm asking, someone in the Army, well, how is it that you connect with your people? So when things get kind of crazy, right? Because this, it's coming, because this is a Leadership with Heart podcast. So there's going to be a little bit of that squishy stuff in there. Okay.
Absolutely.
So when you feel like everybody's kind of doing a great job and it's just like intense and it's nuts and you really haven't had a lot of time to connect, what do you do to kind of recalibrate with that team, kind of reconnect in a deeper way, reestablishing the relationship, even just the emotional connection that does exist, irrespective of how tough everybody looks? How do you do that?
Right. So I would say first it starts before any of that stuff happens. You got to build the team before the proverbial crap hits the fan when situations arise, right? So you basically go ahead and you deepen those connections right away, right at the gate. As soon as you start with a team. It's about talking to them constantly and consistently, and not actually talking about shop. First 30 minutes of my day, I don't spend talking shop. I spend walking around, talking to my people, and talk about how their night was. If it's Monday, how was their weekend? Oh, how terrible the weather has been the past couple of days here in Kingston. How bad the Toronto Maple Leafs, are doing in the playoffs, and and all that jazz, right? Just like how we are right now. It's just chit chat. It's small talk. But at the same time, you're getting to know people on a more of a personal level than just work. So you start building those teams. So that's 30 minutes of the day. And really, what's 30 minutes of your workday, of an 8-hour workday? It's 1/6. 1/16 of your workday.
I love that. I love the idea of the first 30 minutes because it's like, first things first, like the most important things first. So
Absolutely.
my people first. And I love the fact that, this idea of like build the team before you need the team kind of idea. So build that up, build that culture, build that connection. And then when you actually get to the point where you might need it, or when things get tense and you can't actually connect, they know you're connected because they know when things settle down, you're going to go back to your same, process.
Absolutely. And what you're going to find is if you build all those deep connections before things get bad, what you're going to find is that people are going to be more willing to go out on a limb to help you as the leader when you need it. They're going to be willing to do the extra time, come in after hours, stay a little bit later. Potentially, if the company's going through serious turmoil, potentially take a pay cut just because they love where they are and what they're doing with you. So those are just a couple potential things that may happen. Now, when things go bad, as the leader, this is where communication truly comes into play, and making sure everybody's up to speed on what's going on, where they're at, and what the plan is going forward, so that everybody's got that common goal, working towards getting through this tough period, whatever that tough period may be. Maybe it's financial downturn. It could be loss of a team member, worst case scenario. I interviewed a person whose team, portion of their team got wiped out in 9/11 talks, right? Direct to, working at the World Trade Center, right? So these things but will happen at a certain point, like 2008. Financial devastation across Canada and the U.S. These will happen. It will happen again. Something will happen again. So you got to be prepared for it. So building your team and those deep connections is what's going to get you through it, so that they're going to be willing to go the extra mile to get everybody through it.
Oh, that's beautiful. So if for a leader that might be listening right now, one is kind of struggling to, in any particular capacity, just saying struggling in their leadership, how can I be more effective? What would you think, maybe like one or two pearls of wisdom for them? Stop
and just take a moment to breathe and not even think about what the problems are. Clear your mind, whatever that is, however it is for you. In the Army life, we refer to as incident management, right? And during my training for Afghanistan, we went through this God knows how many times, so it's ingrained in your head. So something occurs, most likely a roadside bomb explodes on your convoy. What do you do? And as the convoy commander, believe it or not, one of the first things you should do is absolutely nothing. Take a second to regain your bearings, let things, that second you may have 30 seconds to do that, or you may only have about half a second before a bullet starts flying and you got to start actioning. But either way, you kind of got to shake your head and go, okay, what just happened? Right. What do I need to achieve now? And then you just start working towards that goal. The second thing that leaders should do is, talk to their people and be open and be frank and say, listen, guys, I don't necessarily have all the answers. I am here to provide direction and vision and give you the resources to get the job done. But as a leader, you should always be open to listening to your people and what suggestions they have, because especially the people that are at the ground level, like sales, marketing teams going around, stuff like that, they may have better ideas on how to get their job done than what it's being done right now. I just spent our last fiscal year just clued up, and I just spent like $150,000 on different tools and equipment so that we can get our job done more efficiently, and all that came from the ground level.
Love it, because if you left it up to you, you'd probably be everybody.
I would know. Like they'd be coming to me, like I'd be like, "Oh, so let's go get this new piece of equipment for my maintenance guys," and they'll be like, "What are we getting this for?" Okay, we don't do that. It looks nice, but like, hey, boss, we need this new piece of equipment, and this is what we're going to get. This is what's going to achieve for us. I'm like, done. Go buy.
Love it. Well, that's the ultimate level of trust, which, again, if we can wrap this call up, I think that the idea that you build the team before you need it, building those deep connections with them, helps so much through everything that you're talking about. Because if you've done that hard work, and it is hard work because you have to be consistent.
100%. Oh, it's
right?
the hardest thing you'll ever do.
Yeah, then you're building that trust bucket up. And then when you get to this point where, again, you're stopping and breathing, things are going wrong, or when something happens and your people need something, again, there's this trust built there. So there's this fluidity about it. You're not like having to have them dot their I's, cross their T's, do all these different things to be like stressed about it. But you're like, listen, you know what? I trust your judgment. You go ahead and get it done. That level of empowerment that you've given them, made all the difference for them. It's
yeah. And if I can just add to that, there's one last key component to this whole thing, what we do in the Army. So you build your team, you have the issues, the incident that occurs, you get through it, you rely on your team to get through it. And then after it's done and things have settled and life's gone back to normal, conduct what we refer to as an after action review, or AAR. So you look at, okay, what happened, what did we do, what did we do that went wrong, what did we do what went right, and what could we do better, and all these things. And it doesn't have to be something massive such as the 2008 financial downturn. I use that method even for like minor mistakes. Go over it and use it as a team learning experience. Yes, you're going to have to actually maybe point out an individual, but if the team is solid enough, they'll understand that it's for the betterment of everybody, not just themselves. And if everybody can put their ego aside for a minute and allow that to actually come out and in a group environment say, okay, this is the mistake an individual made. This is the impact it had. All right, everybody, this is how we need to address this. These are the ways we need to operate down the line so that this doesn't occur again in the future. And if that mistake never happens again, well, you know what? That's the best way. Now you got someone who is operating, at a better level than they were 2-3 days ago. Vice, bringing them into a room, saying, listen, you messed up. This is what you did, blah, blah, blah. They're going to go back to their desk, put their head, hands in their head, or their head in their hands, and feel crappy about themselves because, the boss is crapping on me again. Right?
Yes. Well, I appreciate you giving the listeners that last tactical thing, which I think has a lot of power. I don't think we do this enough where we take a look at, even if it's a small mistake or a little impact, if we're not taking time to step back and to review what that impact is and what we could do better next time, well, then how can we be a culture of continuous improvement? So I appreciate you, bringing that to the listeners. This has been great because there's just your call in the conversation we've had is unique in itself. And there's all these little nuggets that I'm hoping that the listeners really took away. I'm telling you, I'm titling this "Build a Team Before You Need It" because I just think that's the most impactful thing, and the connections that we establish mean so much.
Absolutely. The reason why you're there as a leader is because you got your team. You don't have a team, you got nothing. You're nobody. So
we're gonna end it on that, boy. Scott, that was amazing.
Mic drop. Boom.
I love it. Boom, boom. So for anybody that wants to get a hold of you, just, I don't know if you want to just state one way that they can do that. And of course, when we do the show notes, they'll have more details there and more of Scott's bio as well. But what's the one way you think if they want to follow up with you, since it's so interesting and unique, I know they're going to want to ask questions.
Absolutely. Just go to movingforwardleadership.com. You can find me there. That's where my podcast is. That's where all my social media profiles, links are, my contact form, newsletter, everything. That's where I'm at. I'm all about helping people be better leaders so that they can make better teams.
I love it. And I'm so glad that we had you on today. I really appreciate your time. And Leadership with Heart listeners, remember, build the team before you need it. Have a great one. Thank you for listening to the Leadership with Heart podcast. You can grab the show notes by visiting customerfanatics.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter.